Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Not too long ago, I did a video talking about the techniques that pros are using to catch a lot of fish, but they're not really talking about. And I got really good response on that. So we're going to do a few more techniques that are not being utilized by the general angling community. But these are techniques that a lot of pros are using to their advantage, and they're catching a lot of fish and a lot of big fish doing this. So I figured I'd share them with you to help you guys try to catch a few extra fish as well. Before I get into that though, I do want to remind you, if you're looking to support the channel and you need to purchase some fishing tackle, please use my Tackle Warehouse affiliate link. The little bit that I make from that goes right back into making content for you guys, and it's very much appreciated. All right, so last time we talked about how deep diving crankbaits and big spinner baits and wacky rigs could be utilized in different manners. Well, today I've got for you 3 new techniques that you guys need to give a try because it's going to help you catch a bunch of fish. Now, the first one that I want to talk about, again, has to do with crankbaits. Now, in this case, it's your wide wobbling crankbaits like this money badger. Now, the key here is you're not going to fish it like a crankbait. I want you to fish these basically like a surface bait, a topwater. You want to take these and retrieve them at an extremely slow pace where they become a wake bait. But here's the big difference between a wide wobbling crankbait as a wake bait and a traditional wake bait. If you were to go get something that was identified as a wake bait, generally what that means is it's got a lip that almost comes at a 90-degree, and that bait will come across the surface really quickly. It allows you to retrieve it without almost diving under the surface. Well, I've got to tell you from my own personal experience, if you grab some wide wobbling crankbaits, something like the money badger, the wiggle warts are great for this, you rock crawlers, and you retrieve this at a pace where it stays on the surface, you're going to get a completely different action. Basically, what'll happen is that bait will pull under and want to dive. And then you get that really wide wobbling action. It creates a much larger disbursement of water on the surface. It just creates a much different retrieve or look than your traditional wake bait style baits. The key here is, you retrieve it at a pace where that bait is wobbling, but it won't dive. Now, the hard part to this is it wants to dive. These baits are made to dive. So you're going to have to retrieve it at a tantalizing slow retrieval rate. But I'm telling you, it's worth it. The one thing I will say with this too is your hookups generally are really good because the majority of your bait is actually underwater. It almost will be like standing up vertical versus traditional wake baits, which are going to be riding straight horizontal. And because it's riding at a much more of a horizontal or a vertical position, it just seems like the fish are able to get this much better. I love using it around isolated targets. I really have very good success with this during cold water periods. It's almost like the fish are more lethargic and they're not generally willing to come up and eat a topwater, but they will come up and suck this under the surface. So it may be one of those things where the bait just is coming so slowly across them that they just can't deny it. But it's just a great cold water bait, and it generates some really big bites. And a lot of your bites, though, are not nearly as aggressive as a normal topwater bait where they come up and just jump over the top of it. A lot of times you'll be retrieving it and you just see that toilet bowl flush, and it's almost like your line just tightens up because they're grabbing it when it's basically under the surface already. But you got to give it a try. Your big wide wobbling crankbaits, use it as a wake bait. Just a completely different look, and it's so good. It's just so hard to retrieve it so slow at times. But you got to try that. So that's technique number 1. Technique number 2 has to do with your lipless crankbaits. I really think most people are underutilizing a lipless crankbait and they're retrieving it in traditional lipless crankbait manners. I love to take one just like this guy right here and fish this on the bottom in a yo-yo manner style. So I'll take any of your lipless crankbaits. So this one right here is the Berkeley Jack. And I'll throw this out. I'll let it go all the way to the bottom. And then I'm going to yo-yo it back to the boat. but I'm fishing it down in 15, 20, 25 feet of water, almost in a manner like you'd be fishing a football jig. But instead of dragging it, I'm just yo-yoing it. Not hard, but fishing it much more like a blade bait. Very, very underutilized technique. The one thing I like about fishing a lipless that's kind of like the jack is you've got a heavier, skinnier profile, so it stays down faster. So if I'm fishing 10 foot of water or less and I'm fishing it with a yo-yo retrieve, most lipless will work just fine. If you're trying to keep your bait down though in that 20-25 foot range, something that's a little bit heavier, a little bit thinner profile like the jack will let you do it. But you got to try a lipless crankbait with a yo-yo retrieve down deep. Walk it down some of your break lines, walk it down some of your ledges. It's going to generate a lot of bites for you. Very, very underutilized technique by most people. The third technique is somewhat similar to that. It is taking really heavy vibrating jigs. This is a 1.25 ounce chatterbait. I've got it here with a Berkeley Power Stinger on the back. You want to take these and fish them like a football jig on the bottom. Really killer technique for extremely deep depths. I'm talking down 40 foot of water even at times. You throw it, let it go down to the bottom, and you can straight retrieve it, but try to remain bottom contact. This thing's down there just kind of vibrating, and it's deflecting off of some of the different cover. Now, I will tell you, for me, I love to fish this uphill. So what I mean by that is I might have the boat in 15 or 20 feet of water and I'm casting into 40. I'll let it go down to the bottom, and as I retrieve it, you're going to have better contact with the bottom, because these baits still, even at an 1.25 ounce, will want to rise. But if you're fishing it up an incline, it still makes really good bottom contact. But you want to fish your big, heavy, vibrating jigs just like you would be a football jig. Very, very underutilized technique. There are a lot of pros out there that are probably unhappy with me even saying that because of how successful they've been with that. But just a killer technique, especially like on your Tennessee River ledge lakes and places like that. Just really, really good. But these are 3 more techniques that are extremely underutilized by the general public that are catching a lot of fish and a lot of big fish for your top level anglers. Let me know in the comment section, are there some other techniques that you think are very, very underutilized? Put that in the comment section. Otherwise, if you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and stay tuned. We'll have a new one coming out tomorrow.